arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another. I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
Hello and welcome to the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. I'm Rachel.
I'm Vicky.
We're sounding confused because your charging cable just slithered off.
I was like,
desk.
what are these? Is this a cat? Like, what are these noises?
It's a ghost.
It's never a ghost. You always think it's a ghost.
Because sometimes it might be.
It's really not
Maybe
ever,
the
though.
ghost needed to charge its phone.
No.
How do you know?
No.
How do you know?
Because, well, first of all, was the ghost from the year 2000 or after?
How do we know?
Well,
Maybe.
I've never seen one after 2000 referenced
You don't
anywhere.
think you've seen one, period.
I agree. But I'm saying when they're like 1800s ghosts.
It
and
is
they
always
would
like
not
a
even.
little girl in a white nightgown or a woman in a Victorian dress.
What's up with that?
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, Rachel.
I believe in ghosts.
An 1800 ghost would not understand what a cell phone is or what a charging cable is.
Maybe they're really smart.
They're not that smart.
What if it's Nikola Tesla?
They're not
as a
that
ghost?
smart.
He would know. He'd be like, a cell phone of some sort.
No,
Also,
he
fuck
really
Thomas
would
Edison.
not.
Fuck that guy.
Oh my God. Well, if this is your first time listening, a special hello to you.
Hi.
Okay, great episode for you this week.
Yes.
But first, let's head over to the newsroom.
Unfit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad.
Our news this week comes from Japan.
Ooh.
Where a naked man got arrested for breaking into a school. Yeah, so they have, I had to look this up before we started, but they have these things called cram schools that are like intensive schools for standardized testing because they do a lot of like testing and stuff in Japan.
Yeah.
So this guy,
naked
Daisuke
guy.
Nishimura, who's 48 years old, he was arrested on suspicion of breaking into a cram school in Saitama Prefecture. Okay, so there's also like some car accidents associated with this. So basically, according to police, there were multiple reports of a completely naked man with tattoos stealing a vehicle in Saitama City and causing a hit and run accident in which a man on a motorcyclist was killed. Later, he reportedly stole a taxi. The guy had 2 passengers in the back seat, and he stole the taxi with the passengers still inside, crashed outside of the cram school, and all of this while naked. And then he ran into the school. They tried to, what's the word? Encountered. That's not confront. That's the word. They tried to confront him at the school. And when they did, he punched the guy on the side of the head without saying anything. So they called police and they took him into custody. But it was just like,
what are you doing, sir? What
maybe
are you
some
doing?
kind of drugs
Where
or something.
Are your
Who
pants?
knows? Yeah, where are your pants? The fact that he was just like carjacking people and causing accidents, somebody died, going into the school seems very erratic.
Yeah, very weird. It's a very weird to-do list.
Yeah.
And pants
knows?
wasn't on the to-do list?
Pants was not on the to-do list.
That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Weird story out of Japan.
Do you ever do it when we're recording where you say something weird and you're like, I wonder if that'll be the title of the episode?
No. So I don't think about it that hard because I don't decide till later.
Pants.
But I can tell you, it's almost never anything in the intro sections.
Yeah,
so
I know. I noticed that.
It won't be that.
We're not warmed up yet.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to Netflix and Kill. This week we're talking about the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker.
The hash-slinging slasher.
I know, that's what I think of. So the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker is a documentary film. It's about an hour and a half. Wait, is it episodes? Or
I
is it an
love
hour?
documentary movies.
I'm pretty sure it's an actual documentary. I can't remember if there was episodes or not. I think it was just one documentary.
Cool.
That looks at the story of Caleb Kai McGilvery, who is this unhoused man who saved a woman from a violent attack. This guy, he had hitchhiked and gotten picked up by this guy who then drove into somebody and was trying to get out of the car and attack this woman. And Kai, the unhoused man, luckily had a hatchet with him.
Wow.
He attacked the guy who was attacking the woman, thus saving her life. He became this sort of, he did these interviews on TV, and then he kind of became a meme a little bit, and then he all of a sudden became famous. But then these people who were trying to like, they were like, dude, you can do a lot, like let us manage your career or whatever. They started taking him to all these interviews, right? He was very unpredictable. He was very erratic, like he drank a lot. He was like, when you listen to him talk, it's very...
Okay. You can tell something's a little off.
Yes. Like the way he speaks and the things that he talks about are out there.
Like a stream of ideas, kind of.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Like he definitely seemed unstable. And then it turned out that he was a suspect in a murder case.
Aw, man. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Why did he have that hatchet? Good question.
Why did he have that hatchet? And he very much was like, yo, I just want to like smoke weed and surf and like, you know, whatever. But yeah, he was charged in the death of New Jersey attorney Joseph Galfy. He allegedly, Kai has claimed that the guy was going to help him with a place to stay, but when he got there, he was drugged and raped. Police have said actually the encounter was consensual and the murder was premeditated.
Jeez.
Yeah, and it's this, and he would like post things on social media that were really troubling, and then people, because he was like a meme, he was like the hatchet guy meme, they were like, just go hatchet this guy, and then, so it's like encouraging some of this probably psychosis a little bit.
It doesn't seem like it was a good environment for him to be in. That's a lot.
Yeah. So he was found guilty. The trial itself, I mean, there was like outbursts during the trial. He almost had to leave the courtroom.
Oh, dear.
But he was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to 57 years in prison, and he has to serve 85% before parole.
Wow.
But it will be interesting because he will be just 73 when he is eligible for parole.
Wow.
2061. It'll be interesting to see what happens because I wonder if they are going to, I would assume they do some sort of mental health assessment while they're there and see what they can do about that. And also he'll be sober. So,
which I'm sure will make a difference.
Right. So we'll see. But it's just this kind of wild story.
Yeah, I remember all that.
A perfect example of you never really know what's happening. And the people who were trying to capitalize on his sudden fame didn't really understand the situation.
Right. That's dumb.
You know, I think there were probably some beige flags that were ignored.
Yeah.
You know, some things that maybe some pink flags.
Right.
Like
okay.
Maybe light red.
See, I don't know. Even though he's a
maybe
hero and everything, you're hitchhiking and you have a hatchet. That's already like, I'm good.
Yeah. But even watching like the interview that he did after the incident. Seems a little off. Like you can kind of, but again, it's like, so is this guy just like
wacky,
unhoused and kind of wacky,
right.
or like is this a sign of something deeper? So it's an interesting documentary. Again, like you never know anybody
For sure.
It's called The Hatchet Wielding Hitchhiker. It's on Netflix.
The hash swinging, the slash slinging, the
bringing.
cash bringing.
Anyway, this is a part of the show where we say content may not be appropriate for all listeners.
The walls will ooze green slime.
We're going to be talking about murder and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, mine definitely has murder and mine has
sex. abuse.
Yeah, mine has some sexual assault.
I would say some child sexual abuse.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, which will
All will be
understandable
revealed.
when I reveal this topic right now.
Yes.
This was my topic.
Yes.
And
Were you inspired by recent events?
no,
okay?
I picked it before. So
funny.
my topic is naughty priests. Ooh, crazy members
Yeah.
of the clergy. And I picked it before the Pope died.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't even know. Maybe
It's your
killed the
fault.
Pope. It's
It wasn't
me.
JD Vance. It was
It's
you.
me.
Yeah, no. So for reference, the Pope just died a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
By the time this comes out, I would assume conclave is probably done.
Yeah, they'll probably have
Hard
a
to tell,
new
but
Pope.
yeah. So yeah, interesting timing on that, Rachel.
I didn't even do that on purpose.
Timing. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so naughty priests. Peace be with you.
And also with you.
Yeah, love
My
it.
Lutheran upbringing.
I know. If you, yes, you, dear listener,
He is
at
risen.
home.
He is risen indeed.
He has riz, indeed. If you, like Vicky here, finished my classic churchy call and response, you probably have been inside a church.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you went to a wedding or a funeral. Maybe you were dragged there as a child, as many of us were. God knows I had better things to do on Sunday mornings.
Yeah. I've been to one Catholic wedding. I've been
Yeah.
to multiple weddings, but one like Catholic wedding in a church.
Yeah, we went to the same one.
No, different one.
No?
No, it's not the same one. Which one did we go to?
Katie and Adams?
I didn't go to that one.
You didn't?
I wasn't there. Yeah, no. No, Jen, my friend Jen.
Oh,
her
Jen,
and her,
that's
They actually got
right.
married at the church in DeKalb.
Oh.
And the beautiful old school church on
Yeah.
NIU's
Oh,
campus.
that's a gorgeous
No, it was like
church.
Catholic wedding. Luckily, they didn't do a mass, which I was
Oh,
like,
good.
cool. But there was still the whole like kneeling on you flip
Oh,
the thing
yeah.
down and then you kneel.
Yep,
and then,
I went to one too.
It was so boring.
Tragic. It was so bad.
So boring.
I was so ready to get drunk.
It was fine.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
you know. Anyway.
Terrible. Yeah, I had way better things to do on Sunday mornings. Literally anything, devil worship, virgin sacrifice, I don't know. Whatever. But more than likely, even if you never were the church-going type, you've ran into the leaders of the congregations. Now, they go
Yeah.
by many names, pastors, preachers, fathers, depending on the denomination of your congregation. But whatever the title, these so-called holy men get up to some pretty unholy stuff behind the pulpit. And that is exactly our topic, is
Yes.
naughty priests. Now, just to clarify, I mean naughty as in crime committing,
Right.
not naughty as in sexy. Have you ever seen Fleabag?
No.
Please watch Fleabag.
What is
Please
it?
watch it. It's an Amazon Prime show.
Okay.
It's 2 seasons. It's Phoebe Waller-Bridge is incredible.
Okay.
And Andrew Scott. And there's like a priest romance in it.
Okay.
It is life-changing. Please
All
watch
right.
Fleabag. It sounds boring. It's so not. Please
Yeah.
watch it. Please
Okay.
watch it. Please watch Fleabag.
Listen, do you know how many things I've asked you to watch? And you're
I
just
know.
like, I don't have time.
But I really don't. I can't watch regular TV with my children. They already say bad words.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
It's not equal. Personally, I can't really get behind the sexy priest thing. Like, I know it's such a trope, but I'm like, nah, ew.
Well, I think
Oh, there's ghostly footsteps outside.
no, that's definitely Tiff, probably.
Tiff's a ghost?
I think that more so, like the sexy nun thing,
Yeah.
is more of a trope, or it's
Sexy
like
priest is a thing.
it is. Oh no, totally.
Yeah.
But I think I see more sexy nuns,
Right.
Or it's
Right.
like the priest fucking the nun or
Well,
something.
right.
You know what I mean? If we're talking in terms of porn,
Right. And these
But,
tropes
like,
are there for a
yeah,
reason. But
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Like,
I
I
get
just
what
feel
you're
like
saying.
they'd smell like communion wafers.
Yeah.
And that's not sexy to me.
yeah. But also the people who are playing these sexy priests are clearly not. It's like
I
you
love
would
it when they
never
have,
in a
like,
million years.
tattoos and like a septum ring. I'm like, yeah, you are
The Catholic
not.
Church would have been like, absolutely not, sinner, get out. Yeah.
Get thee to a nunnery.
Yeah.
Speaking of not sexy, you know what's really undesirable? The blatant corruption of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And how in today's case, they use that power to attempt to influence the outcome of a grisly murder, even going over the heads of top detectives to try and rewrite the truth.
That sounds about right.
I know, shocker,
That all
right?
tracks. Yeah.
What? This is the case of the very naughty Father Gregory Robinson.
Okay.
Now, I say it's his case, but first I'd like to talk about a woman named Margaret. Margaret Ann Paul was born April 6th, 1908 in Edgerton, Ohio. Her parents, Frank and Catherine Paul, ended up having 9 children, and Margaret was number 4.
Okay.
This was pretty common because they were a farming family. So I feel like back in the day, farming families tend to have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Lots of
Oh my God.
help.
Yeah. Yeah.
But according to her 8 siblings, Margaret always knew she was destined for more. More in her case being the so-called sisterhood. She always wanted to be a nun. The family was super Catholic, but she was the Catholic-est. And at the tender age of 19, she was like, hey, are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. And God was like, hell yeah, get that fine ass over here and join my order. The Order of the Sisters of Mercy.
Okay.
Now,
I don't know
order,
anybody who's like, I want to be a nun when I grow up.
Well, it is like 1908.
Right, I get
and
that.
She's like,
I get
okay,
that, but
it's
still.
Either get married to someone
have a
I don't
million
care,
children.
and have a million
Yeah.
children and have to look at pigs and sheep again my whole life, or
Honestly, I probably would have devoted my life to the church too at that point.
I would have been a really cute farmer.
No, I would have rather never had sex again than to have any children.
I would have had like a platonic female roommate.
Yeah, strictly
my sister.
platonic.
Hey, mister.
Strictly
She's my
platonic.
sister.
Yeah.
I've never been platonic in my life. Now, this particular order had a specific job, which was not to sing all day, like in one of my favorite movies, The Sister Act, or in my other favorite movie, The Sound of Music, which is like such a letdown.
Okay.
But the Sisters of Mercy actually had a pretty cool missive. They opened hospitals to help treat the poor, sick, and needy.
Okay.
And that is exactly what Sister Margaret did. So when you were a nun in that order, then you would help at the hospital.
Okay.
So they would provide religious services and resources to the patients and their families.
Okay.
So
okay.
like, you need a funeral, you need someone to read you your last rites.
Yeah.
We're going to decorate the hospital, et cetera, et cetera.
And this is needy families, right?
Yes.
This is like
Yes.
not the wealthy people coming in being
Correct.
like, do my shit. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So that was their whole thing, is like actually
Low income, I think, is the word I'm looking
Right.
for.
Yes, you are. So, and like
My brain's having a hard time today thinking of words.
We've been in this room for a
Oh
long
my gosh,
time.
yeah.
Us and the ghosts.
Yeah.
Such an unselfish life, even if you don't support all the Catholic Church's actions, which you shouldn't, has to be admired. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not religious at all, but I've always really liked it when, because it's not the case with all nuns, I feel, and not all religious people, but when it's like you're getting together with a goal and you're going to help people, you're going to open a soup kitchen, you're going to open a hospital, it's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Who am
Yeah.
I to say no to that?
Sure.
Sister Margaret was truly committed to the habit, because she's a nun, a habit.
I'm not laughing out of principle.
If you're laughing at home, call in. Let me hear your laughter. This was her life's work, and she thrived in the often chaotic environment of the many hospitals she worked at, providing a stable and peaceful figure for all who knew her, except for one person. Yeah, Father Gregory Robinson, who I mentioned briefly earlier.
Okay.
Who also provided services to the hospital. Now, what was their beef? Fighting over turf or bitches? Probably.
Fighting over God. God loves
Yeah,
me
really.
more.
Loves me more. He loves me the best. But actually, it was more like what sounded like regular old workplace complaints.
Okay. That's the thing. Like, workplace frustrations are pretty much the same no matter
Pretty
who you're working
universal.
for, right? Like, there's
Absolutely.
always going to be somebody you don't like.
Yep.
There's always going to be some headbutting. There's always going to be something that's kind of annoying. It's just like, which level?
Yeah, it just
But it
happens.
is, if you're working in a police department or teaching or being a nun,
Yup.
they are the same.
It's like, oh my God, I hate that bitch.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was the thing. Like, based on what I know now about this crime, you would have thought it would have been something like way crazier.
Mm-hmm.
But like, she was known for being, I mean, this was her whole life. She started
Right.
at 19. By the time this incident happened, she was in her 70s. She had done this her whole life.
Okay.
And she was known for being like kind of nitpicky. People spoke very highly of her, but I mean, Of course she was nitpicky. What
She's
else
like
did she
a
have to do?
70-year-old Catholic nun. Like,
Right.
that's kind of par for the course, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, upon one ordinary Good Friday, Sister Margaret apparently scolded Father Gregory for ending his Good Friday Mass early instead of making it last the traditional Catholic span of 7 cajillion hours. Indeed, Father Greg had again labeled her ways as nitpicking, which, like, again, Greg, she isn't even allowed to whack off or go to the movies. She has nothing else to fucking do.
Yeah, right.
She's gonna be a little detail
Was he younger than her too by the time he like
Yes.
got to, okay, see,
Yeah,
that's
so it's
another
like,
thing
oh, you're
too.
an annoying old lady.
Yeah, it's a very like her, oh my God, this is like the stereotype you see in the movie of
But
like
it's true.
new Catholic priest coming in and
Yes.
the old nun that's been there for a long time who thinks she knows how to do everything
Right.
and she wants things done a certain way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I
it
know
was
exactly what
seen,
you're talking
like,
about.
I don't know, have you ever seen Call the Midwife?
I've seen bits and pieces. I've never
Love
like
Call
sat
the
down
Midwife.
and watched it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But it's like a whole thing where like the nuns, that show is in the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
but the nuns are like, we are the religious order. And when priests would come in like to help,
Yeah.
like we're going to help at your hospital or whatever, they were like, ew.
Yeah.
Like, what do they know? It was
Yeah.
very like, why would a man be here?
It's like very matronly, like
Yes.
very, yeah.
Very much so. So I'm sure there was some, but it was never reported as anything like super serious.
No. But that is, I know the vibe you're talking
Me
about. That's
too.
like, yeah, I
painting
get
the
that.
picture. On Saturday, April 6th, 1980, the day after their little spat, Sister Margaret was chilling in the chapel, probably listening to Chapel Roan, except that she wasn't because she's a nun and this is the 80s. So I just lied to you. She was preparing for the upcoming Easter festivities, and as she was like head honcho of the parish, she had a lot of work to do. This Saturday was probably extremely special to the sister as it fell upon what would have been her 72nd birthday.
Oh.
Happy birthday, Margaret.
Easter weekend.
Right. Unfortunately, Sister Margaret would not make it to this particular Easter service, nor would she ever prepare for another one.
Damn. Okay.
Yup, for on that bustling Saturday morning, Sister Margaret would be found dead, and it wasn't from natural causes. In fact, some might describe the circumstances as supernatural. Now, this area of Ohio, stay with me, was considered extremely rigid and conservative, with Catholicism at the forefront of most people's lives.
Okay.
So this was in Toledo. So as I was writing this, I was like, oh, I'm going to like write down like a holy Toledo joke because like, you know, ha 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 ha. That's why they say that.
Yeah.
That Toledo has a sister city in Spain, which is like an important holy city somehow.
Yeah.
And that's why they say Holy Toledo.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. That's very funny. I love that. Join me next time for more Toledo facts.
Oh, God.
That's
Okay.
actually the only one that I have.
No, Ohio kind of sucks.
Ohio sucks ass. I'm never going there. If you're from Ohio, unsubscribe.
No. Dude, what the fuck? You can't just say that.
We love
Oh
you.
my God.
We love you, Ohio. I want to go to Cedar Point.
It was fun. I like
Oh,
Cedar Point.
you've been there?
Oh, yeah.
It looks so fun.
Caitlin, my roommate in college, is originally from Ohio.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And so when she had her wedding, Wani actually went with me as my +1, and we went to her wedding. And then on our way home, on the next day, we did Cedar Point all day, and then we drove home.
What?
Yeah.
That sounds so fun.
But actually, I went in high school too. That was the second time I'd gone because we went on a
way.
band trip.
I don't think I've ever been to Ohio.
I played in Cedar Point for marching
No
band.
way.
Yeah.
Vicky Lore.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, very Christian area. So religious imagery was like everywhere and was seen as like very sacred.
Yeah.
But there was nothing sacred about the state in which an unfortunate organist would find the body of Sister Margaret Paul. In fact, when she discovered the unholy scene, her horrified screams could be heard throughout the enormous hospital, drawing spectators to see what had happened.
Okay.
Now, I said unholy scene, and unfortunately, I was not exaggerating, for what the detectives discovered would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Sister Margaret's lifeless body was slightly hidden by an altar cloth that was draped over her, which was drenched in her blood.
Oh, geez.
When they drew back the cover, they noticed that her body was posed extremely suggestively, with the dress pulled up and her undergarments pulled down, suggesting a sexual assault. Now, there was like a little like iffiness about that where they were like, well, we don't know if she was sexually assaulted, but they do know. They did a whole
I
autopsy.
was gonna say you can find that out.
She had trauma to the area and she was a 70-year-old nun.
Yeah.
So yes, she was.
Right.
So if articles say that, they're lying to you. They didn't do enough research. Unlike me, Now, that's certainly horrible enough, but that's not all. For as the experts examined Margaret's injuries, they noticed that the multiple stab wounds on her chest lined up to a particular shape, the inverted cross.
Ooh, satanic.
Yes. There was also a smear of blood across her forehead that looked eerily similar to the ash that Catholics use to anoint their foreheads on the just past holiday, Ash Wednesday.
Right.
So this is the day after Good Friday.
Right.
So before Friday becomes, Wednesday. And that's when they have the ash on their heads.
Ash Wednesday and Monday, Thursday. And
Yup.
Good Friday and regular old Saturday.
Yeah, lame ass Saturday.
Regular old Saturday. And then Easter Sunday.
Yay! He has risen. Whoever had done this to poor Sister Margaret had very clearly wanted their devilish intentions to be very apparent. And can you imagine, like, the shock waves that this sort of crime sent through this close-knit religious community in the 80s?
Yeah.
Satanic panic.
Oh, my God, yeah.
No.
Like, at its prime in the 80s.
So, obviously, Toledo police got to work questioning the hundreds of employees at the hospital to see if anyone knew anything useful. As for physical searches, they didn't have to look long before coming across something interesting. The murder weapon.
Oh, how lucky.
Yeah, so nice. See, the medical examiners were medically examining Sister Margaret's stab wounds, of which, by the way, there were at least 31.
Jeez.
So this was massive overkill. And rage.
Yeah.
And so the police were like in contact with them, like, okay, what are we looking for? This is probably like, what, a butcher knife? And they were like, no, it's like a weirdly shaped object. It's not a knife. It's not a screwdriver. But it's a sharp implement, but whatever you're looking for is like kind of unusually shaped.
Okay.
But when they found it, they knew right away.
Yeah.
So it was a letter opener. It was shaped like a sword.
Yeah, I've seen those are very, very common.
Yup.
In offices because frankly, they do a better job at opening envelopes than like the one like
the
little plastic ones.
Right.
Those are much better.
Very,
they're a little heftier,
very
but
much
also fully could kill somebody.
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
And did.
Yes.
So they discover this later, but like they were like, this looks right. And it didn't have any blood on it. Later, they would take it apart, and they did find blood, like when they took off like the decorative parts and like took off.
I'm
like,
sure
to
if
get
you
the
take
inside.
like the hilt piece out, there's like the little where it inserts.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Exactly. So they found it later, but they were like, this looks right. Like they were just kind of taking in anything that could work. Mm-hmm. And later, the medical examiner took the other side of the blade. There's like a little pommel on the end that's like a tiny little like shape. Yeah. And it fit so perfectly into a wound on Margaret's body that they said it was like a key into a lock.
Oh, geez.
So they were like, this is the murder weapon.
Yeah.
Now, where did they find this absolutely crucial piece of evidence? Oh, it was in the desk drawer of one Father Robinson, of course.
So he just chose not to get rid of it?
Yeah, he was like, oh my God.
I guess it would be weird if the day after he was like, so listen, I'm going to need a new letter opener.
My old one
Can you requisition me one of those, please?
Gross.
Yeah. I broke the other one. I don't know what happened. I just came in, it was broken.
They also found something else kind of weird in his possession. You'll have to tell me if you think this is weird. A book describing how to perform the satanic black mass. They just found that in his office.
Okay.
That's normal, right?
Honestly, I don't know that it would be that unusual. You could make the argument. He could, if he wanted to. He could make the argument that he's like doing research. I was
just knowing my enemy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You could. I'm not saying it's a strong argument.
It's not.
It's not. But like, you could.
Right. And that's kind of what I thought too, was like, well, or like I confiscated this from someone.
Especially if there had been a crime in the area or nearby that had recently been attributed to like a Satan worshiping something.
Cool.
But like, you'd have to have all the things lining up just right for that to be plausible.
He did not have any of the things. So when they pulled him into the police department. We're like, we're just going to question you. You're not under arrest. You're just detained, whatever. It was a long interrogation. And he was only like somewhat like cooperative.
Okay.
Not like being a dick, but just sort of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Not being forthcoming for sure.
And the initial investigation, which was like right after this had occurred, they ended up letting him go But there was this weird thing where, like, at the end of the interrogation, he was like, oh, I guess I should tell you, somebody like came into the church and like told me that they killed her, but since I'm a priest, I like can't tell you who it is.
How
because, like,
convenient.
religious.
How convenient. They told me
Yeah.
during confession and I can't reveal. How convenient.
Right. And they were like, okay, well, that's, you don't have to tell us who it is. Just like tell us like what time it's. They were like, because, you know, the police have dealt with that before. And that is a
Right.
legitimate
Right.
legal defense.
Right.
So they were like, oh, okay, just tell us when it was. And then he was like, oh,
I don't know.
so that's actually, I made that up because I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go home.
Oh my God.
They were like, okay, I guess we should let you go now. So
Yeah.
They did. Stupid.
Yeah. Well, he was just there for questioning.
I know, but I'm like, don't you think that's suspicious?
Also, he's a priest.
Who cares?
That carries
Jail.
that carries with
Death.
it extra
Yes, it does, Vicky.
credibility.
And I'm leading up to that right now. You're
Okay.
gonna hate this so much.
Oh, I'm
so
sure.
excited to
I'm
tell
sure.
this to you. So he was questioned and then released, and then they, like 2 weeks later, they had done like the medical investigation on her, and they'd gotten all of this other information, including witnesses, such as the organist who found poor Sister Margaret's body.
Yeah.
Was like, yeah, Father Robinson was like right outside. She's like, she's like, it was so weird because he's just normally not there. And like, I think there was even a thing
Oh
where
my
like,
God.
yeah, there was another nurse who said the same thing, and she felt really terrible because she hadn't told them at first, but she
Yeah.
was like, he's a priest and it's a religious hospital.
Right.
But she's like, you're right, he wasn't normally there. He's not really supposed to be over here. So I
Right.
don't know what he was doing over here.
Yeah.
So it was just like little like things like that were like easily explainable if he could easily
Right.
explain it.
Right.
Which he couldn't.
Of course.
So they brought him back in, and we're again like, okay, we're just gonna question you. Everything's chill. So Dean Mandros, who was the chief of the like criminal division, was like, okay, we're sitting down, we're questioning him. All of a sudden, Deputy Police Chief Ray Vetter broke off. He went into the office, which it's like, what are you doing in here? Broke off the interview and allowed a Monsignor to escort. They like frog marched him out.
Oh God. Okay.
Ray Vetter, the guy who just interrupted the interview, was a staunch Catholic.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
high. So they literally were like, no, we're going to take him out of here now. He's a priest. You can't question him.
Jeez. Oh my God.
Quote, this upset the detectives to no end.
Where was this at? What?
Ohio.
Okay.
Toledo.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is
Jesus.
parts of
All right.
Ohio are very conservative. for
There's
sure.
also a lot of I don't want to say a lot of, but there's also quite a bit of mob action actually in
yes,
Ohio.
there absolutely
So
is.
like
there was mentions of that in a lot of the
Yeah.
articles. I couldn't quite tie it to this case, but like, yeah, there's a
no,
lot
but
of
like
mob
that,
shit.
something like that, because then you get into these levels of police corruption,
Yes.
and like that is not actually that surprising either for Ohio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were like, anyway, also, this guy took their reports on the case. He was like, you have to give these to me. And then the reports, many of them were never seen again. Like they were
Oh,
obviously
my
like,
God.
shredded or whatever.
Dude,
Yup.
like, well, you can have a copy.
Right.
Like, even if you're gonna do that.
This was his deputy police chief. So it's like he has
Yeah.
to, he's just a detective, you know? So he has to give it to him.
Yeah.
I know. Such
That wouldn't happen now without somebody making a record of it, I think. People would, I
Exactly.
think, be smart enough to be at least to write it down,
Right.
like, on this day, this happened.
right.
Not saying it wouldn't happen, but
Yeah,
like,
I think it still does
there
happen.
would be a record.
It would be harder to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to just be able to get somebody out of the police station without them being
Right.
like, anyway.
Yeah.
'Cause they wouldn't even have any of their possessions. They'd
No.
have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, product of the times and obviously of a very corrupt.
Right.
local government.
Right.
So, for that little bit, that was kind of it. They couldn't move forward because he was obviously the fucking murderer. And
Yeah.
they couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
So they were like, well, I mean, okay. So the case went cold and everyone kind of moved on with their lives until 2003, when a woman who her identity was never revealed. The police did find her, but her identity has never been revealed to the public.
Sure,
She goes by
sure.
Survivor Doe.
Okay.
She wrote, they say a letter, it was really more of an expose, to the police department claiming that several priests, when she was a child in like the Catholic school system, had sexually abused her and taken advantage of her. And Robinson was front and center.
Yeah.
Not only was it, I almost said I don't hate to say they deserve it. The very well-known Catholic sexual abuse. So I don't want to call it run of the mill, but it's like we're all expecting it.
Yeah.
Not only was that bad enough, but she claimed that it was like cult activity.
Okay.
Very much back to you watched True Detective finally, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very that. Very like the priests, and she said there were women there who weren't nuns but would dress up as nuns, and they would do rituals and animal sacrifice and sexually assault children. There was even claims that were unsubstantiated but very, I'm like, I hope somebody looked into this, that they killed a 3-year-old child like in front of her.
Okay. Okay.
So they were involving her in all of these dark satanic rituals and dripping blood everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
Very Hollywood and gross. So that was her expose. And so she was like, Father Robinson did this to me. That her case eventually was dismissed because it missed the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit.
And less of a problem now, I will say, because a lot of places have changed that to eliminate statute of limitations on that kind of
Which
thing.
I agree with.
I do too.
It's so dumb.
But yes, that's...
I'm glad
crazy.
that's like becoming a thing of the past
Yeah.
because it's so frustrating. It's like, well, you called too late. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Who cares how long ago they did it?
Yeah.
It's that same thing of like when they find like 100-year-old people who it turns out were guards in the concentration camps. So people were like, don't put them in jail. They're old. I'm like, put them under the jail. What do you mean?
Also, they're convicting those people in Germany and they do not give a fuck over there.
Yeah.
Because there was that one guy who got put on trial.
Oh, I love that. I love
but
it.
they do not fucking care how old you
they're
were.
like,
They
oh, no,
will
you're
put you
going
through the
to
whole
jail,
thing.
which is great.
Yeah, I agree.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
So all of this came out, and even though they ended up not being able to prosecute him for that case, it was like suspicious and weird enough that they were like, now we have enough where we can take another look at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went over the whole thing with the letter opener fitting into like the part of her bone, like a key in a lock. They actually, when they brought this to trial, they brought the piece of Sister Margaret's bone because they exhumed her body now.
Yeah.
And were like medically examining, making sure that it was the letter opener. So in court, not only did they hold up like the bloody altar cloth, which is really scary.
Yeah.
But they held up the piece of her bone and fit the head of the letter opener into it, which was like very...
It's a very dramatic moment in court, I'm sure.
But I do love those.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, it's gruesome and gross, but I'm like, ooh,
I know. I've been watching the Karen Reed trial because that started.
Oh my god!
And I'm just like hoping I get one of those. I want to see a big court moment where everyone's like, oh my gosh.
Those are the best.
It's probably not going to happen because
you can't handle the truth.
This is the second trial, so like. But I'm still waiting for it.
You never know.
I know.
I
do love those big,
my fingers for you.
Dramatic courtroom moments.
Police and prosecutors found, I was talking about the witnesses who saw him like skulking around outside of the of the chapel. That went into, it's a pretty circumstantial case, I will say.
Okay.
And it happened so much longer that I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to convict. But luckily, he was found guilty on all counts.
Oh, good.
On May 11th, 2006.
Okay.
This was the second conviction for homicide of a Catholic priest in the United States.
Okay.
And the last one was in 1916.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
We always do like dovetailing ones. Oh my god. We always do this. Everyone online's like, yeah, you planned it before. No, we don't.
No, we really don't. We really don't.
So there was a bunch of like appeal stuff. He tried to appeal several times, but it was always turned down. Because in 2008, they reaffirmed his conviction.
Okay.
And then so that was in July. And then in December, because I guess, as you know, I'm not an expert in these things, even a little bit. I guess it went up to the Ohio Supreme Court because they were trying to see like if everything was cool. And they were like, we don't even want to fucking hear it.
Yeah.
They denied to hear his appeal.
Yeah.
They were
A lot
like,
of
"Go
times
away."
if it's a state case, so you can appeal it. But then if it goes to an appeals court, you get an automatic appeal to the
Okay.
Supreme Court.
But they decide whether or not they want to hear it.
Yes.
Based on the okay, that makes sense.
Trying to remember if that's right.
Legal friend.
Yeah.
Then he
That's right.
appealed again in 2012.
But typically Supreme Court handles not guilt or innocence, but more procedural.
Oh, okay. Like how long they got and stuff.
No, like if the arrest was valid, if they're claiming like First Amendment rights were violated, or like, that kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like less
that
like
makes sense.
guilt or innocence based on the evidence, but more like, was the jury instructed properly, or are they claiming that the jury received improper
Paperwork
instructions?
stuff.
Yeah, it's more because then if something needs to be changed, they'll remand it back down to the lower courts, and that's when like they would retry it, or whatever that is. So the
glad
Supreme
you're
Court
here.
is the Supreme Court is more. I hate to say procedural stuff, but it
that
is.
makes sense.
It's more
Because
rights.
they're like the ultimate court. So they're the ones
Yeah.
who can like comb through.
Yeah, it's more rights based than like deciding guilt or innocence, because that is all
Got it.
decided in the lower court.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
sidebar.
That was
Correcting myself.
No,
too,
I'm
so.
glad. I'm glad to hear that, because
Yeah,
whenever I
yeah.
read these things, I'm like, I don't really know what the fuck that means.
Yeah,
to be honest
yeah.
with you. So he continued to try to appeal all the way up until his death. He really never spoke on it. He was like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't do that. Finally, in May 2014, in the midst of still trying to fucking appeal, he had a heart attack. He was transferred to hospice, like prison hospice, and then died on the 4th of July.
Wow.
2014.
Freedom.
I know, like
Freedom from this
goodbye.
monster.
Sister Margaret was beloved by all who knew her,
Yeah.
picky or no. She was a pretty fabulous nun. And that's creepy.
Yeah.
I love how
agree.
the cult stuff is only like barely mentioned. I'm like, who the hell were all these other people?
Yeah.
Like,
but
what
I
the fuck? It's
wonder
gross.
how real that was.
For real.
Because there was a lot of that, like, not saying that's what happened in this case, but there's a lot of that, like, false memory implantation.
Yeah,
There's a lot of exaggeration because people wanted things to be a
Yes.
satanic ritual or
They
some
didn't
kind
want
of
it
occult
associated
shit.
with
Right. Like
Christianity.
they wanted it to be that.
Right.
Because that also made things like very pro-Christianity, right? Like that sent a lot of
Absolutely.
people running back to the church.
Yep. And children can remember things differently.
Yeah, yeah. Now, granted, I'm not saying in this case that the witness
No,
had
I'm not
false
either.
memories or
I'm not
whatever,
either,
but
that
like,
is a thing that happens.
yeah, that was,
absolutely.
or it just exaggerated.
Yeah.
Like
Or she was confused.
the
she was a
like
kid.
descriptions of sacrifice and stuff were like. I always take that with a grain of salt because
Right, and I think that's wise.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with
Yeah.
it being, I don't blame her at all, but her
Right.
being a Jane Doe, a
Yes.
survivor Doe, it's like, it's hard to, like, I believe her because this guy was an asshole,
yeah.
but
Yeah. I mean, I believe the sexual assault stuff, right?
Absolutely.
But like the sacrifice and all that other stuff, it's like,
okay.
was it that
let's
level?
see.
Was it happening? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sexual assault stuff, yeah, that sounds about right.
That tracks.
Yeah.
But yep, he's
What a piece of shit.
in hell.
Good.
And that's it.
Cool. Yeah, so you just mentioned the other guy in the United
cannot
States. How
believe
funny.
that.
Did you look into his case at all or not so
No.
much? Good, because it's fucking crazy.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It's wild.
Yay.
Yeah. And honestly, by the end of the story, you're going to be like, how did this guy ever become a priest in the first place?
What?
Because it was not like an escalation. It was like,
Oh my God.
Okay. Yes. But I had to give the German Catholics some representation.
Okay.
Because,
Oh yeah.
me being German, like I'm like, let's give the homies some representation.
Love
so
it.
I am covering Hans Schmidt. So Schmidt was born in, and I'm gonna apologize because I might be German in heritage, but,
But
I
not
cannot speak
linguistically.
it. No.
Same.
So he was born in Aschaffenburg, Germany in 1881.
Okay.
Almost immediately, it was pretty clear that something was kind of off about him.
Okay.
Something that seemed, frankly, unavoidable because there's this very, very, very long history of mental illness in his family. Later, they talk about presenting a family tree in court, and they're talking like 60 people in total having some sort of like mental illness, mental health struggle.
That's crazy.
And this is in the late 1800s into the early 1900s. So like the fact that they're even recognizing that.
Yeah, it means that it was extreme.
But also, I'm like, was all of that real mental illness? Or was that like labeling the women with hysteria? And that's, you know what I'm saying? So, but it was present. It definitely was present.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
Right. Crazy.
I know.
I thought you were going to say they showed the family tree and it only had like 3 branches. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, right. It's 2 branches and everybody coming down off of one. Lots of incest.
That explains.
Yeah, right. I will also say, too, like, again, we're talking about the late 1800s to early 1900s. Mental illness was handled in a completely different way. Really? A lot of times very poorly.
Right.
In 1800s Europe.
Just do cocaine about it.
Right. Or like, go to a spa.
Right.
Like,
I am a big fan of like going to the seaside for your health.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
I need to get my humors balanced.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, his childhood was not great.
Yeah.
His father was wicked abusive, often beating him, and then he would like beat his mom while he watched. Like it was not good.
That's so sad.
I saw a story about when Schmidt was a child that he would spend the afternoons at the local slaughterhouse because he loved to go and watch the cows and the pigs get slaughtered. Like that was his like favorite pastime.
Normal.
Some of these stories give me very Jeffrey Dahmer vibes.
Absolutely.
A lot of this is
we
like
were talking about that in the other episode too.
A lot of this is especially like his childhood and his upbringing.
Yeah.
Very, very Jeffrey Dahmer vibes.
Oh God.
Yeah. There was also talk about being obsessed with dismembering animals and drinking blood.
Oh, cute.
So he got sort of interested in the occult a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though his family was very religious. But there was still this
now we're going Richard Ramirez.
occult thing. There's also this sort of unhealthy blending of deep religious commitment and bisexuality. And so this is what I'm talking about. Like he's dabbling in Catholicism. He's sort of dabbling in the occult. He's exploring his sexuality. And all of these things are happening during his adolescence where ideas are getting confused and mixed together. You know what I'm saying? Like when this is happening during your formative years, like those ideas, and especially when it comes to sexuality, like associating some of these things with sexual pleasure or whatever it is, like becomes very
the speaker at that
confusing
reading we just went to was talking about that.
Yes.
We went and saw a former FBI profiler.
I forget what his name is. It was really good though.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Dr. Scott something. Bowl.
Dr.
Scott
Janet.
Something.
Dr. Scott.
It was really interesting. But yes, like
Rocky.
and I've heard because I've been watching Hollywood Demons recently, and Dr. Drew is on that. I love Dr. Drew. But he talks about like as you're going through puberty and these things coming up, especially sexual abuse, like kind of like rewires your brain into your
like
sexual pleasure
switches,
zones, like
it
rewire.
switches pain and pleasure.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I think there was a little bit of that happening.
That makes
too,
sense.
like all of this happening at once. So he decides to enter seminary in Germany. This is sort of where his trouble starts.
Oh, dear.
In 1905, Schmidt was arrested for forging diplomas for failing students.
Oh.
But thanks to a lawyer hired by his father, Schmidt managed to get these charges dropped for mental defect.
What? He's like, I was just stupid.
I was being insane about it. I don't know. I don't know. But also, like, you could say mental defect and they'd be like, all right.
Right.
Like, there was not like a...
Go on teaching then.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you're right. He does seem a little off. It's fine. Like, yeah.
That's just this guy.
Yeah. It seems to me that Schmidt must have just given off these sort of like weird dude vibes.
Yeah.
Like you can walk in and be like, that dude, he just seems a little like weird. He must have given off these vibes because there were a lot of people who were skeptical that he would even finish college at all.
Right.
But despite this, Schmidt was ordained by Bishop Kirstein of Mainz in December 1904 at the age of 25. Almost immediately, Schmidt began having conflicts with folks in charge, like higher up church officials. His first parish assignments took him to Bergel and Seelingstadt, where he worked for about 4 years. These are like little villages in Germany. He was there for about 4 years. During this time, he had multiple affairs with women, retained the services of sex workers, and molested altar boys. So really hitting all the Catholic priest hotspots.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah. He was also kind of known for having these more like eccentric out there sermons, which is a huge no-no for the ultra-conservative Catholic Church.
Yeah, Catholics are like by the book or not at all.
Yeah. And I don't imagine it was like, like the gospel preaching of Baptists.
Right.
I don't think it was like that extreme. But like even one little toe out of line in the order you do your services. So people were complaining.
Yeah.
Like the congregation was like, we don't like this.
Wow.
Complaints along with all this other
bad reviews
stuff
on Priest Yelp.
So all of this bad behavior and ignoring the church rules led Schmidt to be reassigned. As they like to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, they don't fire. They just put him somewhere else.
No, and this is something that in recent years, I think people have realized as a pattern, especially since the Boston Globe Spotlight article, that when something happens, rather than handling defrocking or whatever they need to do, they just
go work somewhere else,
reassign to hide them, and then they continue offending, especially in cases of sexual assault. That seems to be the pattern,
and that's part of the reason why it was so widespread. Is because they were just like, oh, this is a new priest, where'd he come from? Don't even worry about it. Here you go.
Don't even worry about it.
We're not going to tell you what he
He's
did.
totally fine though.
Yeah.
We promise.
Here, leave him with your children.
On God. We promise. Okay, so he gets reassigned. In 1908, Schmidt was reassigned to St. John's Parish in Louisville, Kentucky, marking his first time in the United States.
Okay.
So this is when he first comes over.
They were like, get out of the country.
And that's what they do. They will just move
God.
countries a lot of times because now country authorities are looking for... Yeah, it's a whole thing.
That's
anyway,
disgusting.
the problems continued.
Of course.
Obviously.
Shocker.
And when conflict between Schmidt and senior leaders in Kentucky became too much, he was once again reassigned to St. Boniface Church in Manhattan. It was there where Schmidt met Anna Aumüller, another recent New York transplant from she was from like the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Okay.
He was also from there, but like that is not really a thing anymore.
They were like, oh, Europe, hooray.
Yeah. But yeah, they have both come from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is no longer a thing anymore.
Europe buddies.
But they strike up this friendship. She is working at St. Boniface as a housekeeper in the rectory.
Okay.
So she had just come over. She gets this job as a housekeeper. They strike up a friendship, but like Schmidt quickly gets into his weird antics.
Yeah.
In later conversations, Schmidt would claim that he heard the voice of God commanding him to love Anna.
Oh, sure.
And the two secretly began having an affair.
Dick her down.
Yeah. This is my command.
Do it. I want to watch. I'm a
Show the
freak like
deed.
that.
That's my command. Yeah. So they start this secret affair, basically. Now, it sounds like he had pursued Anna for a while and she kind of like rebuffed his...
No.
Yeah.
It's not right.
But it also sounds like eventually she took him up on his offer and that it was consensual.
Okay.
But how consensual is that with that type of power imbalance?
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Especially when a person is like pursuing, and you just keep like putting them off, and they don't stop.
Right.
Like,
no means fucking no.
It seems like it was consensual, but like, I do want to point that out because.
Right. Especially with the times too, when that kind of thing wasn't taken seriously. It's like, oh, give him a chance. He's probably nice. No, he's fucking
especially
not.
as a
drinking
priest.
Animals' blood.
Right. Especially as a priest who comes with some sort of credibility just embedded into that title.
Yep.
So I wonder, like,
I agree with you.
How much she was actually in that relationship, or like if she was just like, well, if I do this, then he'll just leave me alone type of thing.
Right.
But it was like an ongoing affair.
Yeah. No, that's important to think about.
This is, and I will say too, like, that's all speculation. I did not see anything supporting that, but
speculation. At all.
Yeah. So it seems like a single woman could not satiate Schmidt's sexual appetite.
Oh, God.
Because while he was having his affair with Anna, he also began a secret homosexual relationship with a man named Ernest Murray, who worked in New York as a dentist.
Uh-oh, sisters.
Let's not forget, bisexual.
Right.
He's like,
I never forget.
Little of this, little of that. I'm like, this story has everything Rachel wants.
It does. It does.
Gay love, straight love, priests, it's fine. And this time it's actually really
consensual.
Two men kissing.
Right. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So he's having an affair with Anna, who works at the church. Behind her back, he's having an affair with this man, Ernest Murray, who's a dentist.
Okay.
Ernest has this, like, I think this is part of the reason why he was attracted to him. Ernest has a side job that was counterfeiting.
Oh my God.
Which obviously Schmidt had experience in. Later, there is speculation that he was involved in this sort of counterfeiting forging operation that Ernest was running out of his apartment. Yeah. So that's all happening sort of in the background. He's a great Catholic.
Oh my God.
As you're telling the story, it's very easy to forget that this guy is a priest.
For real. I'm like, wait. I'm just imagining him with the little collar on committing all these crimes.
Yeah, right. Right. Sometime into their relationship, Schmidt was once again relocated to St. Joseph's Church in West Harlem. It is speculated that the church, St. Boniface, found out about Schmidt's relationship with Anna, like the two of them. And that they were having an affair and wanted to move them in order to sort of keep it quiet before it got out.
That makes sense.
But it didn't deter the couple from seeing each other. And in February 1913, the two got married in a secret ceremony that Schmidt performed himself.
Get out of here. I take my beloved wife?
I do. Yeah. He's like, I performed the marriage. He wrote up the marriage certificate.
That's crazy.
He signed all the things, and they did it in secret.
I don't think you can do that.
Obviously, he's a priest.
Yeah.
And the Catholic Church definitely does not condone premarital sex, and it definitely does not condone one of their priests getting married. Like,
no.
They are specifically celibate.
Yeah.
Like, period.
Yeah.
So wild. He's just like, well, we're just going to go here. They'd even rented an apartment as a married couple.
Wow.
Yeah.
Scandalo
indeed.
Dang.
But both of their worlds were about to change because Anna was pregnant.
No.
Fuck.
Antichrist.
Yes. So she did tell this to Schmidt, and he immediately knew, like, this was not good for him. Because not only am I having sex, now they're married, but they were not before. But also he's supposed to be celibate. He's not supposed to be married. Definitely not supposed to be living with the woman.
No.
Not to mention,
didn't you pray about it?
Not to mention the gay stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's happened. And the counterfeiting and like, yeah.
Gross.
So to solve his problem, Schmidt decided to take matters into his own hands. On September 2nd, 1913, Schmidt went to their apartment, and while Anna was sleeping, he slashed her throat. He then dismembered Anna's body, wrapping some pieces in newspaper, putting some pieces into like pillowcases and stuff.
Oh my God.
Takes all of these pieces, hops on a ferry ride on the Hudson River where he disposed of Anna's body.
Dare I say, that's pretty smart.
He then returned to church and performed a mass like
Ew.
everything was fine. Nothing to see here. All good. Because also they didn't know that they were in this relationship.
Right.
Anna and Schmidt.
Right. Whoa.
But then pieces of Anna's body, of her torso, started washing up at Cliffside Park and in Weehawken, New Jersey. They just like
Oh my God.
started showing up on the shore. Police at that point knew they had a little bit of a situation on their hands.
Right.
One of the pieces that had washed up was wrapped in one of the pillowcases, and lucky for them, the pillowcase still had an intact price tag attached, which led them to a factory in Newark.
I love stuff like this.
You're going to love this. You're going to love this. So they go to the factory in Newark. The factory only sold to a single furniture dealer named George Sachs.
Ooh.
Authorities went to the dealer's store, and after looking through some receipts, he found one for a bed spring, mattress, pillows, and pillowcases that were delivered to someone named A. Van Dyke on August 26, 1913. And he had the delivery address, so he gave the delivery address to police. They immediately went there, questioned the building superintendent. He told authorities that a married couple had lived in the unit. And in question, and the man had given his name as H. Schmidt. He also recalled the man had a heavy German accent. Weird.
Oh my God.
So then they were like, well, let's stake out the building. Because right now this is all like circumstantial, right? They're just
Right.
like, but they're following the trail. I'm like,
they're
this
like,
is
okay, let's
hella good policing for
Yeah.
early 1900s
I
where
love
they're
it.
just like,
That's my favorite thing.
yes, yeah.
Like one thing leads to another thing leads to another thing, and they're just following the trail.
So they decide to stake it out to see who was like coming and going from this apartment because the people weren't home at the time. They waited for like 3 or 4 days and they didn't see anybody going out. Like there was no activity. So they were like, fuck it. Let's just break down the door
Right.
and see what's inside.
Right.
They opened the door. They discovered dried blood all over the walls.
Well, yeah.
The floor had dried blood that was very obviously like tried to be cleaned up. Like somebody had tried to wash the floor, but you could still sort of see some of the blood stains on the floor. I know. I know. They found a large bloodstained knife in the kitchen, as well as men's clothing with the name given at the furniture store sewn into it.
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo, bango.
But there was more. There was much more.
Oh, no.
Letters written to Hans Schmidt in both English and German. Further investigation of the letters found that many were from women in Germany, but most were from a woman named Anna Amuller. They continued following the trail of evidence, visiting the address from which Anna had sent the letters to Schmidt. There, they were told that Anna had left after taking a housekeeper job at St. Boniface's Church. So that was the next stop.
There you go.
They went to the church, and after questioning the senior pastor, found that she had worked there, but was transferred to St. Joseph's. They also took this opportunity to ask them, hey, do you know this guy named Hans Schmidt? Has he ever worked here? Whatever.
Right.
And discovered the same thing had happened to him.
Oh.
He also gets transferred to the same church. So they went to St. Joseph's, where they discovered a sleeping Hans Schmidt.
Snork. Me, 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 me.
Yeah, it was like they found the senior pastor. They're like, do you know this guy? Can we talk to him? And he's like, oh, yeah, I think he's in here. And they open the door. He's like sleeping.
Taking a nap.
Yeah. They wake him up, and almost immediately he confessed to the murder.
Oh, wow.
Proclaiming, I killed her because I loved her.
Oh, yeah.
Schmidt was immediately arrested.
Well, yeah. Fucking idiot.
But what a trail to follow. Like, perfect
That was
policing.
awesome.
Yeah. Obviously, the Catholic Church heard about this almost immediately. And honestly, I think realizing they couldn't like relocate their way out of this one,
Right. For
suspended Schmidt indefinitely.
Wow.
They just let him hang on his own.
Well, good.
This was also at a time when media would have eaten this shit up. Like
Right.
yellow journalism was very prominent at this time.
Yes.
And they had a complete field day in the press because this is a very unusual crime. And like you said, this is one of like 2 actual murder cases from priests.
A priest.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
let me see. Okay. Schmidt went to trial in 1913, and his defense team went hard in the paint with an insanity plea, hoping to avoid the death penalty.
Right.
They claimed because Schmidt was hearing voices
Whatever.
and was bisexual, he clearly suffered from psychosis, which I love that they include bisexuality as part of an insanity defense.
Clearly he's nuts.
You could commit murder, Rachel, because
I'm gonna
like
do
you'd be
it.
like, but I'm just bisexual.
I'm just bisexual and around.
Sorry, it's the bisexual.
Yeah, you have to respect my rights
Yes,
as a bisexual
yeah.
to murder.
Yeah, I just
whoever
thought that
I
they
want.
included that.
I love
Very
it.
1900s
It's perfect.
defense. Yeah, so they also presented evidence of mental illness within Schmidt's family. This is when they presented the family tree.
I bet that was crazy to see in court.
However, the prosecution brought in alienists. Do you know what an alienist is?
No.
So an alienist is essentially the early day psychiatrist.
Oh,
They went by a
okay.
different name. There's actually a great series called The Alienist
I was gonna
where they
say,
talk about
I know
solving
it's a TV show.
yeah, the TV show solving crime. And have you watched
Oh,
it?
no, I haven't.
It's really good because it's like solving
Interesting.
crime using psychology.
I love that.
But they were called alienists. So they brought one in, and this is still sort of the early days of that, where that is becoming a more accepted. People still kind of thought psychology was like
right. You're gonna shrink your head.
yeah, like very woohoo science.
Yeah.
So the fact that they brought one in to
Right.
court is kind of amazing.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. So the alienist came in and said,
This guy's crazy.
no, no, they came in and refuted these claims, saying he was
Oh.
completely sane.
Oh, great.
Yeah. By the end of it all, the trial concluded with a hung jury in December 1913. So he goes to trial again, a second time, like 2 weeks later. And the defense presented a slightly different defense this time, saying that just before Anna's murder, Schmidt had found another German immigrant woman to pose as Anna and go and purchase a $5,000 life insurance policy.
Oh.
And so then the theory became that he did this for the life insurance money, although I'm not sure why that makes it better.
Right. It doesn't matter. So
or
what?
if it was supposed to more support the psychosis defense or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That
Anyway.
just makes it more premeditated.
Yeah. Well, it only took 3 hours of deliberation. The jury returned a guilty verdict on first-degree murder in February 1914, and Schmidt was sentenced to death. There were appeals and things filed, which extended his stay on death row at Sing Sing prison. In one attempt at a new trial, Schmidt admitted that he was faking his insanity during trial, but claimed he was doing it all for love.
Oh, yeah.
All for love. Because,
Love.
so that second affair that he was having with the dentist, Ernest
Yep.
Murray, remember
Yep.
that? Well, now Schmidt was claiming that Ernest had accidentally killed Anna during a botched abortion.
Shut up.
And everything he did after that was to protect his lover. Like, I love this man so much.
No,
I
no,
wanted
no.
to take the fall for the murder.
And I'm sure Ernest was like, me?
Again, ignore the dismemberment because, like,
Right.
ignore
Why
that.
did you do that?
Yeah, I don't.
Get out of here.
I know.
Liar.
Yeah, so Ernest and Bertha Zeck, who was the woman that Schmidt claimed that he hired to
Oh,
impersonate Anna, they came forward to the authorities and they were like, absolutely not.
No.
None of this happened that he's talking about. This never happened.
Right.
Essentially tanking Schmidt's appeal efforts.
Good.
So on February 18th, 1916, Schmidt was executed via the electric chair at Sing Sing prison.
Wow.
His final words were, I want to say one word before I go. I beg forgiveness of all I have offended or scandalized, and I forgive all who have offended against me.
Yeah.
And then just before they threw the switch, he said, my last word is to say goodbye to my dear old mother. Schmidt became the first and only priest to be executed in the United States.
Wow.
As far as I could tell, that's still the case.
Wow.
Because frankly, the priest murder thing is not a super common thing. I have
No.
heard of it. I've heard of it in some other countries.
Right, but not in America.
We've had some things where it's like suspected murder, but I don't think anything's been charged or, but it's not like as normal as like child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, which is very normal, unfortunately. So he's, as far as I can tell, still the first and only to ever be executed.
Whoa.
Attempts were made to get Schmidt's body back to Germany. However, they're like smack dab in the middle of World War I.
Right, so they're like, we have other things to do right now.
Yeah. So transport was impossible. The family did agree to have Schmidt buried in a secret, undisclosed location, which fair enough. After his execution, Schmidt was suspected in a few other unsolved murders.
Really?
Yeah. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
I know.
Dismember on your first murder is kind of crazy.
Right. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. And the fact that he never like freaked out or anything.
Right.
He just went back to church.
Let's be real. Like how many times he was relocated and moved around. Like it becomes very easy to not connect these things.
That's why I think he's the only priest who's been executed in this country. Not because priests don't be murdering, but because they just put him in a new town.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, I'm in a little bit of trouble. Have fun in another country.
So there are some claims that before he had gone to New York, he was seen with two women who he claimed were his wife. Like both of them, he claimed were his wife on separate occasions.
Oh, okay.
And neither of them had been seen since their time with Schmidt.
Whoa.
Kind of big question mark there.
Right.
There were also a couple children who had gone missing. He may or may not have had something to do with. In one instance, this is the most compelling one to me. In one instance, he was witnessed bringing a 5-year-old boy to his apartment, claiming that it was his son named August Van Dyke.
The name from earlier.
So I'm wondering if, and this boy was not seen after that. Let me finish with that. But I'm wondering if, because this would have been before Anna's murder.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that was just the name that he picked up.
Yep.
From that boy, or
bet so,
if
too.
that was just a name that he used as his alias all the time. Because it probably was not the boy.
Right.
He said that was his son's name, but he probably wasn't giving a real name. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Finally, Schmidt was an alternate suspect in the murder of 9-year-old Alma Kellner. So her body was discovered in the basement of St. John's Church, where he had been transferred to in Kentucky. That was like his first relocation from Germany.
Right.
Was this St. Joseph's St. John's in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So Joseph Wendling, a janitor at the church, was actually arrested and convicted in that case based on circumstantial evidence and given a life sentence.
Oh my God.
It's interesting because if I remember correctly, her body obviously being very bloody, but they saw attempts to dismember her body, although her body was not dismembered, but they could see
Maybe
the
he got,
marks
like,
on the
caught in the act or
body.
something. Wow.
Very weird.
That's pathology.
Now, I will say, because it was circumstantial evidence, and there was a lot, and maybe we'll talk about this on a show at a different time. But there was a lot of questions surrounding his actual guilt. There was a big push from the family. And Wendling was actually pardoned by Virginia State and deported back to his home country of France in 1935, a free man.
Wow.
Yeah, which I found to be interesting.
Very interesting.
Because being pardoned and not being commuted.
Yeah. That's like a huge...
Which is a big difference. Pardon and commutation are two totally different things, and they're a very big difference.
I don't know about all that.
Interesting, right?
Suspicious.
So anyway, that is the story of Hans Schmidt.
That's a good one.
Crazy.
What?
Because he literally out the gate was acting wild. And they're like, you can still be a priest though.
Yeah,
it's
what
fine.
What the fuck? They have no standards.
I mean, are we surprised?
No. No.
Yes. Before you decide to join the Catholic Church, why don't you check out this podcast?
Or do anything else.
Just literally anything else.
Hi, I'm Lainey, host of the new podcast, We're All Just Pretending. It's a podcast that has elements of Dear Abby with a twist of Post-Secret. Every episode, I'll read listener questions and provide advice and insight as a friend. My own pod friends will even join in and offer their advice on parenting, relationships, and even give you really bad advice on purpose. Since we all have secrets to share, there'll also be a segment focusing on letting the skeletons out of your closet. If you're looking for advice or want to share a secret, head to allpretendingpod.com. And remember, we're all just pretending here.
All right, friends, that has been our episode for this week.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to take a nap.
Was that technically a white collar crime episode? Because they're Catholic priests and they wear white collars.
Yeah, but they're under black collars. It's like white collar under black collar.
I literally thought of that at the beginning, and I'm like, I can't.
You're so
wait
dumb
to say that. It's so funny, and she didn't even laugh.
No, I don't laugh at any of your jokes.
It's because you're dead inside.
It's true. That is accurate.
Don't appreciate comedy.
It's because I'm dead inside. Do you have any final thoughts before we go?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, if you enjoyed this episode, you can find more just like this at badtastepodcast.com.
Yeah.
Our sound and editing is by Tiff Fullman. Our music is by Jason Zakshevsky, the Enigma. Woo! This has been the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
He's risen. Oh, God, he's rising. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Get back down there.
The highway. It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.